Well, it's Thursday, and you all know what that means. So today, of course, as always, we'll be reviewing Ring of Honor featuring, of course, many matches. But however, we do have, of course, three proving ground matches for the Ring of Honor Pure title, the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title, and of course, the AEW Women's World title as well. And then, of course, we move on with, of course, TNA with some interesting matches. Well, Mr. Elegance faces the TNA Knockouts World Champion. Well, this is going to be interesting, of course. Santino Morel and Indy Hartwell will get finally their hands on Ariana Grace and Stax. But the main event is the Wicked a Garden match, which is, of course, a match that will be between, of course, two teams that have been facing off each other back and forth in the last couple of months, the Hardys and the Righteous. So this is going to be a very interesting matchup. And then, of course, as always, we'll wrap up our episode, as usual, with some news updates to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of wrestling, such as what offensive promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Lead Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to the Lead Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK. In a world pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information was unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do some real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Nagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us and click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough of the jibber jabbers, let's get to it. So let's begin with Ring of Honor. Alright, Ring of Honor. We opened up with tag team action. We got the Grizzled Young Vets versus the Rascals, Myron Reed and Zachary Wentz. Now, it's not the first time these guys have dealt with the GYV. Remember that the Rascals teamed up with Ortiz and Eddie Kingston to deal with, of course, the GYV and the Premier Athletes, which, of course, allowed the Rascals, Ortiz, and Kingston to pick up the win. But now we're seeing this in a different type of setting, of course. Now, of course, the GYV, in my opinion, I would have assumed that would have picked up the win because there are certain moments when things don't go according to plan. They tried to cheat their way through, but this time it did not do anything harm because we did see, of course, a combination first of the spiral tap by Zachary Wentz and then finally 450 by Myron Reed onto Zach Gibson. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, the Rascals picked up the win. Now, Athena, as you know, well, let's just say she is happy with the fact that she walked away as the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion after the survival of the fittest, defeating anybody that stood in her way. However, there's one thing that still was on her mind. which is a bit of revenge on the one person that she couldn't beat. And I'm talking about the current IWGP Women's Champion, Shooty. So basically, she announced that at Global Wars in Cincinnati, she's going to put the ROH Women's World title on the line against Shooty, this time to rectify a wrong that she feels should be right, and that is defeating her. And that is something we will see. But it also became official. It's going to happen. Now, our next match, we have Lacey Lane versus Queen Aminata. So I thought this match was pretty good. I thought it was very fantastic, and they were going back and forth, back and forth. But however, you would have assumed that Lacey Lane would have picked up the win, but unfortunately, it was Queen Aminata with off with the head onto her, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, there was a bit of a interview between them by Sam Laterna talking about. Seems like that we're going to see a bit of a rubber match between those two, so we'll see how things go from there. Now, ahead of their main event, we did see Busta and the Brain, Jordan Oliver and Alec Price. As you know, they will be facing the Kingdom, and they are now in fact feeling, the Kingdom don't respect them because they feel like guys like them are a potential threat. But they are determined to defeat them to show them that they earned their spot to be there, and hopes one day they'll make their way for ROH World Tag Team title consistency. So we'll see where that goes from there for them. Now our next match, we have Alex Kane, Russ Hamilton, and Kieran Gray taking on a very interesting combination. The Colognes, Eddie and Orlando, they team up with Serpentico. As you probably all know, all three of these guys are Puerto Ricans. So you can say these are the Puerto Ricans boys or whatever. But anyway, it was a pretty good match, not gonna lie. I think seeing these three guys having some great chemistry fits in perfectly well for them. But in the end, we did see Orlando Colon doing a frog splash on Kieran Gray, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, adios. It's over. Now, Isla Dawn, as you know, we haven't seen her for quite some time, but now she wants to have a shot of the ROH Women's Pure title. So basically, she's calling out Deonna Purrazzo. So that's where we lead to the next match, which is a proving ground match, of course. Now remember, if, of course, Isla Dawn defeats Deonna Purrazzo or survive a certain time limit, she gets a title shot. But however, of course, I'm sure Isla Dawn is fully aware that, Deonna Purrazzo is no slouch. Basically, she can put you in that Fujiwara armbar, and that is it, or Vilas de Milo. So basically, she's being careful, but unfortunately, that was not enough because eventually, Deonna Purrazzo was able to put her in the Fujiwara armbar, and just like that, it was over by tap out. So, no title shot for her anytime soon. Next up, we have Brian Keith taking on Tommy Billington. It was a pretty good match, Tommy Billington seems like he had this match under control, but however, Brian Keith pulled out, of course, one of the safety of the turnbuckles, but what referee was distracted taking care of that. Brian Keith pulled out like some sort of a screwdriver and just spiked Tommy Billington and then pinned him with the Emerald Tiger Driver. 1, 2, 3, done. So he got away with cheating. Now, our next match, we have another proving ground. It's for the pure title. Mance Warner versus Lee Moriarty. Now, Mance Warner has issued this match to take place, so he seems like he's having. But however, we never seen Mance Warner in his entire career ever participated in this type of a style because it's different. He's more of a blue collar brawler who's up for a fight. That's the kind of thing. But of course, Lee Moriarty, we all know he's very experienced with that. But unfortunately, Mance Warner came up short when he was set in a Border City stretch. And just like that, he tapped out. Lee Moriarty picked up the win. Now, Sam Laterna did an interview with Deonna Purrazzo, of course, congratulating her on a win, retaining the belt at Supercard of Honor and all that. But however, Deonna Purrazzo told her, that this is why this title was meant for her, telling her that she'll keep on racking wins against anybody who steps up. But I think the real question we ask ourselves, who's going to be stepping up this time? Well, that's yet to be seen. Now, our next match, well, he's fine. Yeah, he's fine. Leo Rush versus Griff Garrison. Now, I don't know how Griff Garrison could deal with a guy like this, but what's funny, he was going after the cup that I don't know if he thought it was alcohol. I don't know what Leo Rush was thinking, but of course, you would have assumed that Griff Garrison, due to the fact that he's a taller guy, would have been. Would have picked up the win. But no, Leo Rush, he is fast as hell, but he does develop a new type of agility to be a bit of a powerhouse for his size, and he was able to do so onto Leo Rush when he put him in a low cutter, then the Kavla, which is a submission move, and just like that, Griff Garrison tapped out. Now, we did see another interview with Sam Letourneau talking to the Colognes and Serpentico. As you know, they feel happier with their newfound tag team together as three Boricuans, hopefully I pronounce it right. But yes, however, they feel like they want to aim for the ROH six-man tag team belts, but however, they feel they have to keep on racking wins, and they made the decision to go after the former Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions, and that is Shane Taylor Promotions. Later it was revealed, of course, became official that they will be facing them next week. Now, our next match is the Kingdom versus Busta and the Brain. I thought this match was incredible at some point. I mean, you would not have imagined. I mean, you seem like you would have thought that the new generation would have picked up the win, but no. Of course, the Kingdom was not going to let anybody, especially the younger generation, try to steal their thunders. So they were Taven eye gouge Oliver, then rolled him up, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, picked up the win. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Busta and the Brain would want to have a little payback for that match, but we'll see what happens. Now, our main event, of course, is the ROH Women's World title in a Proving Ground match. Hyan, as you know, will face off against Athena. Now, don't forget, Athena trained Hyan and that sort of thing. And I thought it was a pretty good match. Now, there were moments in this match you would have assumed Hyan would have defeated her own mentor, but it did not. Athena was able to defeat her by putting her in a submission, and just like that, it was over. And of course, Athena, now she can focus on the one person that she lost to and rectify that loss. So we'll see how things go from there. So that's pretty much it, what happened in Ring of Honor. So let's move on with our last review, and that is, of course, TNA. Okay, TNA. We opened up with singles action. We have Eddie Edwards of the System taking on BDE. Now, of course, as always, Eddie Edwards has the System, the current tag team champions and the X Division champion, along with his ride or die Alicia. Now, of course, obviously, we would have seen this match where BDE will had everything under control until the System decided to distract themselves, of course, allowing for, of course, to pick up the win when Eddie Edwards applied the Boston Knee Party, and just like that, 1, 2, 3 was over. However, of course, the System decided in the post-match to surround BD like vultures until Fabian Eichner showed up, of course, tried the deal take matters in their own hands, and then Lee on Slater showed up too, who still has an axe to grind against the System too. So basically, this is going to be a full-on feud. And I would be surprised if we see Eichner, Slater, and BD team up against the System next week. So we'll see how that plays out too. Now, AJ Francis comes out, of course, calling out Elijah, and he tells him that he served him, basically telling him that he owns him, cease and desist, that he's not allowed to use Elias, Ezekiel, or Elijah's, or any of the songs because he owns it. But however, Elijah was going to play anyway, and then he was attacked by AJ Francis, so we may see another feud taking place sooner or later. Now, ahead of their match, Santino Marella and Indy Hartwell, of course, were warming up, getting ready, until they, of course, were approached by that rational person who thinks she is better than everyone, Daria, and she thinks that, of course, she questioned about Indy Hartwell about her resign, which, of course, she felt that she had nothing to do with that. But however, we don't know. But we'll see. Now, Elena Black, as you know, since her return, to making her, no, not return, but more appearing into TNA. She, as you know, has one goal in mind, and that is the TNA Knockouts World Title. So that's pretty much it. She even made a statement about the wins she has obtained, the people. So she will be keeping an eye out because of the whole situation. So we'll see what happens. Now, let's jump into the match between Indy Hartwell and Santino Marella, taking on Ariana Grace and her fiance Stackhouse. Now, this whole match, as you know, began thanks to Ariana Grace, who betrayed her father when NXT, of course, were making their presence known, trying to prove to say that TNA was nothing more than a cancer that needs to be wiped out, but it did not happen. And then, of course, Ariana Grace turned her back on her own father. And of course, Stacks and Ariana Grace has been making Santino Marella's life a living hell. However, Daria did try to suspend them because of certain things that were not true, even though she thinks it did. And that sort of. And Indy Hartwell, as you know, had Santino Marella's back from the very beginning. So, and that's where we led. Now, of course, Santino Marella was not going to fight his own daughter. He felt like Indy Hartwell would do that. He wanted Stacks. And of course, you would have assumed that certain things Stacks and Ariana Grace was going to use to cheat. However, of course, when Santino had Stacks depth to rights ready to do the Cobra, well, luckily Indy Hartwell showed up and stopped, beat the crap out of her until Santino pulled out another Cobra. So we did see a double Cobra, and just like that, Santino pins Stacks. 1, 2, 3, done. Now, we did see the Elegant brands. Now, if you guys saw what happened last week, well, Mr. Elegance had the head of a bunny on top. Now, the Chihuahua, Em and Heather were like saying, "Are you okay?" We saw like, "No, what are you talking about? What bunny head? What are you guys are talking about?" So like, we saw a bunny head on you, which it's you who was in that. And he's like, "Nah, that wasn't me." But of course, they try to brush it off, saying maybe it was just our imagination. But yeah, until of course, Mara Shade, Rosemary, and Allie just showed up. And I thought it was crazy. Like, it was really funny because they never dealt with them before. But I thought it was way funny. Now, in the ring, Eric Young, as you know, he is the guy who will be challenging for the TNA World Title. So he is calling out, saying to Mike Santana, saying to him that, of course, that everything is addiction to him. Like, he feels like him listening to the fans, getting their cheers, it's all addiction, like a poison. But Mike Santana shot up saying, "You, Eric Young, are the poison in TNA." So basically saying, you're toxic, you're the reason that you're acting this way because you can't stand the fact that the past is gone and the future is now. So you want to bring back the past. That sort of thing. And of course, Eric Young just low blowed him and then took him out completely. So we'll see what happens from there. Now, we did see Mustafa Ali along with the Order of 4. Well, Mustafa Ali, as you know, was not happy with the fact that he lost against Casey Navarro. Now, of course, this idiot thinks that it was all a fluke. But, of course, he looks at Tasha Steelz like this was her fault. I'm like, well, it's no one's fault. I mean, things just happen. But he's going to give Casey Navarro a shot of the TNA International title next week. So we'll see where that goes from there. Now, our next match, we have Mr. Elegance, of course, taking on Li Yingling. Now, the Chihuahua, as you know, basically said this because of what happened at the Champions Challenge was Li Yingling's fault. No, it was not her fault, you know. Problem is, you know, they don't trust her. That's the thing. So they thought he could do that. But one thing was funny is Li Yingling tried to do that whole, like, try to mock him. And then, of course, the Elegance Brands decided to, of course, get involved until the referee told them to get down, and they refused to listen until he goes straight to Heather, to M, then of course to Chihuahua, and then of course to Heather. Then, woo, you're out of there, and just like that. So yeah, they're crying like little big babies, knowing too well they got evicted. But of course, for those who did not notice, we did see Zaya Brooks that was in ringside. And All of a sudden, she gets involved, and then um, Mr. Elegant's eye gouge, of course, Xia Brookside, and then tried to excuse him in order to pick up the win. I'm sure Li Yingli will get revenge for that loss, but we'll see what happens, because we know the Yingling will have to deal with Xia Brookside soon enough. Now, our main event is the Wicked Garden match. Now, this is the first time in many years we don't see the Hardys in their compound. It seems that, of course, that the Righteous were not going to play by their games. They want to play by their own. And they had like tons of stuff. I mean, barbed wires, tables, and all that. I thought it was a gruesome brutality type of match until, of course, Jeff Hardy started to, felt like he was sick or something. So he even vomited something out. I'm not sure if that's part of the act or a real thing. But of course, things changed after that when they took out Matt Hardy with the Orange Sunshine, with the Orange Sunshine by Vincent, and pinned Matt Hardy. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. And of course, the Righteous picked up the win that they wanted. But however, lights turned black and the Hardys were gone. Now, we don't know what this means. We don't know if there's going to be like another evolution of the Hardys. I don't know, but we'll see what happens next week. So right now, we are done with TNA. Let's move on with some news updates. So welcome to our news update. So let's begin with upcoming events, starting with GCW, of course. Now, as you know, on June 6th in Atlantic City, we have the Tournament of Survival 11. We do have 2 more matches. These are the final ones, part of the opening round matches of the tournament. We have Mr. Danger versus Dr. Redacted, and then, of course, we have Anakin Murphy versus Viper. So these are the last 2 matches that have been announced for Tournament of Survival. Then, of course, we have on the 27th of June in LA for America's Most Wanted. The GCW World title will be defended. The Silver Tooth Satan will defend it against the handsome Cold Devil Hook. So that's going to be impressive right there. And then, of course, we have the Manchester, New Hampshire event, the Melee in Manchester on the 12th of July, of course. They announced that Richard Holiday will be in action to take on Bear Bronson. GCW announced for the first time ever they'll be making their debut on Omaha, Nebraska on July 31st, a day before, of course, the Minneapolis event. So that's pretty much for our GCW updates. Now, we do have some updates from Produced by Orange Crush. Now, as you know, we have Volume 2 on July 16, Tiger Style. It was announced that Kobe Corino will be participating. And then, of course, we have the Montreal event on July 26th, of course. They announced Jonathan Gresham and the Green Phantom will take on Mad Dog Connolly and Beastman. And then we have, of course, Produced Volume 3 that will happen on August 3rd in Brooklyn, New York. They just announced Josh Barnett will be in action to take on Andy Williams. And then finally, Mystico will take on Rocky Romero. So, as you know, Volume 3 has been curated by Rocky Romero, in case anybody asks. Now, on to some developments. Now, you may have heard about departures, releases, that sort of thing that happened. Now, all the way from across the Pacific in Japan, a most shocking announcement came up that, of course, Shun Skywalker from Dragon Gate announced his departure from, will be departing from, of course, Dragon Gate, which very surprisingly, I didn't know what was the reason. It's still unclear what's he going to do next. Is he going to be in another promotion? I don't know. As you know, the last person who just recently left Dragon Gate was Dragon Dia, but we have no idea what's going to happen to him as soon as since his release. So yeah, Molly Grace, as many of you know, who did a tour with Mighty Gold and later signed with TNA, well, she just requested her release from TNA. Well, she got it, of course. So she's officially out of TNA. She's been released. Now, the Butcher and the Blade, as you know, as one of the few original members of the tag team division in AEW, well, they're now officially free agents. apparently that their AEW contracts has officially expired. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, for those who don't know, if they show up in TNA. For those who know this or not, of course, the Blade, his real life wife is the Bunny, Allie from TNA. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make the jump there. So who knows, but we'll see. Now, Tokyo Sports reports about Sareee. As you know, she'll be participating in the Owen Hart tournament. Well, apparently she was sidelined due to a neck injury, and then before this whole thing happened. But she'll be making her return to the ring on June 10th in Ohio for, of course, for Dynamite. Of course, as you know, she'll be in action to take on Sky Blue. So that's something we are fully aware. Now, remember Professor Chase? Apparently, he's just announced that he is now officially accepting any bookings. So, if anybody who wants to see him in your local promotions, get in touch with your local promoters from there. Let them know, I want to see Andre Chase in this promotion. So, they'll see if they can book him there. Now, finally, as you know, we have that promotion known as Produced by Orange Crush. As you know, they'll be doing a New York City event, and this was reported by the New York event that will happen, of course, on August 3rd. The Wrestling Observer just revealed that it's been confirmed officially that they will be having AEW and New Japan talent participating in this event. So it seems like there'll be more names added, so we'll see what happens. So we'll leave things as it is right now in our news updates. So we're officially done with everything. Let's call it a day. Alright, well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, well, as you know, we have another New Japan show. This is the finals of the Best of the Super Juniors because, well, the semifinals. As you know, we will see, of course, Robbie Eagles versus Kosa Fujita. And then, of course, we have Yo versus Master Wato. So I can't wait to see what the semifinals is going to be like. So can't wait to review this. So it's going to be awesome. Now, if there's any other events I might review, we'll just have to wait and see until then. So, but however, the priority is New Japan in case anybody asks. So we'll go from there. If there's anything else, good. Everything goes exactly as gravy. So until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day. Bang.